Hey gang, it's your old buddy Platt, and today we review the Craft-a-Brew Hard Seltzer Kit. So let's go. Well, I'm sure I don't have to tell you, but out there these days, one of the hottest trends in the alcoholic beverage business is hard seltzer. Everybody's doing it, from the big breweries, your Bud, Miller, Coors, to even small and regional breweries. I believe some spirit companies have gotten in the business. Everybody's kind of got in the hard seltzer business. As a kind of hardcore old school beer drinker, I'm not sure what I think about it. I've tried hard seltzers, not necessarily my cup of tea, but I'm really fascinated on the process, or the making of hard seltzer. I have tried variations over the years of different malt beverages, your wine cooler type drinks, the Zima type beverages, and I've really never been able to nail it. And I think with this kit, though, I think I've got it figured out. One of the things I would do in the past is I would use malt. I'd use light malt, the regular malted barley, like you would for a light beer. That still added some flavor and some color that I didn't want it, but I think with this kit we're gonna nail this down. Real quick, this kit is a 1 gallon kit. I believe the flavor is grapefruit, but let's check out and see what we got inside before we get started. All right, first and foremost, instructions. Those are, of course, important. Then we have everything else comes in this 1 gallon glass fermenter. Probably one of the reasons why I bought this is I have several of the 1 gallon glass carboys, but if you know the classic carboy, they have kind of a narrow neck, where this has a full size neck, so it makes cleaning, if I wanted to use this for like a beer, dry hop, or add anything like that, makes your life easier. So just this fermenter alone kind of makes the kit nice. Has a nice little vent for your airlock in there. Speaking of which, airlock included, which is important. What else we have? Most importantly, dextrose. Non-GMO sugar, it says, which is good. We don't want GMOs. But this is dextrose. They don't use malt or malted barley for the process. They'll use dextrose. Dextrose is glorified corn sugar. And again, I think that's where I went wrong in the past. I've done experiments with regular table sugar. My video on how to make water with, or make alcohol with just yeast and water, we use cane sugar. This is corn sugar, and it's going to have just a different flavor. It's going to ferment a little different. Just straight sugar washes generally need yeast nutrient, and that's why sometimes just a plain cane sugar kind of doesn't work. Dextrose, this gets used a lot in like malt liquors or whatever. You want to bump up gravity, but you're not going to spend more money on malt. Dextrose is that. So we have our dextrose. We have a funnel, if I can get her out. There we go. What else do we have? We have also our sanitizer. This is a no-rinse sanitizer. Comes in all of Craft-a-Brew's kits, so you don't have to worry about getting that. We have our yeast. It is a Lavalin EC 1118. We have a 5 gram pack there. What else we got? We've got, and then we have a pack of yeast nutrient. Again, because we're kind of just fermenting sugar and water, the yeast nutrient's very important. And then last but not least, it says natural flavors, grapefruit, some kind of flavor crystal. Could be not something too far off of Kool-Aid, just without the color, because we're keeping it clean. So that is our kit. Pretty simple kit. Make 1 gallon. So now that we got everything out, let's make some hard seltzer. All right, gang, the first thing we're going to do is you want to sanitize your fermenter. I've got sanitizer in. I've also thrown in my airlock. We want to sanitize that. Only going to use about half the packet for this. You'll want to save the rest of the sanitizer, though, for when you bottle in a couple of weeks. You'll use it to sanitize your bottle, so don't throw that away. What we got going on here in the stove is I'm boiling a half gallon of water. We're not doing a full gallon, even though it's a 1 gallon batch. We'll use some water to cool it down a little bit later. But we're going to bring 1 gallon of water to a boil, and it is just starting to bubble now. So, and then we're going to go ahead and add the whole pack of dextrose. You want to make sure you get all those fermentable sugars in there. There you go. Want to do it fast so you don't get that humidity up there and it'll stick to the bag sometimes. We're going to go ahead and cut that heat off when we do that. And we're going to just stir to make sure we get all this sugar incorporated. You can almost think what we're doing is making almost like a simple sugar. We're not using cane sugar, but we are using a sugar, and we're just going to stir this in until it becomes clear. We get everything. We don't want any of that sugar settling on the bottom and scorching or getting burnt. They'll give you all flavors. We're just going to stir this in, and then we're going to kick this. We're going to bring it back up to a boil and let it boil for 5 minutes. And then we'll come back for our next step. All right, so we've been boiling about 5 minutes, and we're going to go ahead and cut off our heat. At this point, according to the instructions, it says we add the yeast nutrient. To be honest, I've never done that way. I've generally pitched it at the same time I pitched the yeast. But they say to put it in and incorporate it while it's still hot, so we're going to follow the instructions. One quick note, if you want to try to do this on your own, just instead of buying a kit, just buying the bulk dextrose or whatever, you still need yeast nutrient. I want to encourage that. Again, when doing something, as we talked about in my video where I just made alcohol with sugar and water, when you're just using straight sugar, there's not enough nutrients for the yeast. That's why they love barley, or like in winemaking, grape juice, because there's nutrients in there for the yeast, or it's not just straight sugar. So you still need the yeast nutrient. You can put it in like this, or pitch it when you pitch the yeast. Either way, but yeast nutrient is important. Just want to get that addendum. Also, real quick, since we're talking about the instructions, just went over the instructions again. They claim this comes out to 4.5%, so I'm not going to do hydrometer reading. Most of these kits are pretty accurate anyway. So we're looking at 4.5% alcohol by volume, which I think is kind of commonplace out there in the marketplace, even though you can trick it up, and easily boost the alcohol with additional dextrose. I think most lines out there in the 4 to 5% alcohol by volume. So I've got my yeast nutrient stirred in. Next thing I want to do is put this in an ice bath. I'm going to go ahead and rinse out or clean out my sanitizer, and we'll come back to pitch our yeast and then kind of talk you way through the rest of the process. All right, so I threw our solution into the ice bath. We let it cool down. We got our temperature down to 75 degrees. I ended up having to add some extra ice water to it to get to the 1 gallon mark. They say the 1 gallon mark's roughly an inch below the bottom lip here. So we've got 1 gallon of our solution fermenting. I went in and pitched the yeast real quickly, and I want to talk about that. According to the instructions, they say to use 1/4 of the packet. Well, this packet is a 5-gram packet. Most home brewing kits I've used that are the 5 gallon packets generally have these 11.5 gram packets of yeast. So for 1 gallon, you would use somewhere between 2 and 3 grams. That is something I've kind of standardly told people when they've asked me how much yeast, and I want to say 2 to 3 grams a gallon. In other kits I've used that 2 to 3 grams a gallon is kind of there. With the 5 gram pack, if I just use a quarter of the pack, that's 1¼ grams. Could be enough to do the job. I'm going to say use between quarter and half the pack. Half the pack would come out to 2½ grams. You don't want to overpitch, like you wouldn't want to put the whole packet of yeast in. If you overpitch, it will still work, but you could get funky flavor because yeast, when they kind of first hit the solution, they kind of mark their territory to a certain extent. They kind of excrete something to kind of mark their territory to a certain extent. And if you got too many of them in there, you've got too much of that. Kind of like if you had too many dogs in your front yard marking their territory. It wouldn't be a good thing. So anyway, just on that, like I said, the instructions say a quarter pack. I say quarter to half, and you should be fine. And the best part is you can reuse this. Yeah. All right, so where do we go from here? I've pitched the yeast. We've got this cooled down. We've got 1 gallon going. We're going to let this ferment for 2 weeks according to the instructions. And then at the end of 2 weeks is when you bottle. If you're totally new to this and this is the first time you've done any home brewing, I suggest just sticking with what the kit says. If you've bottled before, then you may have your own technique or whatever. What they say in the instructions to do is that they'll come back in 2 weeks and we'll take a cup of water, we'll heat it up, add 2 tablespoons of sugar, and that'll be the sugar we need to bottle. What happens in the bottling process is you add back additional sugar, they'll reactivate the yeast, and in the bottle it will create CO2, thus giving us carbonation. So they say to do that, and then when you create that sugar and water solution, that's when you would add the flavor crystals. That's when they're saying to add it, and then you would pitch it into here, let it all mix in together, and then you would start bottling into individual bottles. If you have a racking cane, you could use that. If you're a regular home brewer, maybe have a bottling bottle with a spigot, which is what I'm going to do, you could use that. Whatever you got at home, if you had to literally pour like that, the only problem with that method is you could stir up some of the dead yeast and get a transfer. You want to avoid that. So anyway, like I said, we'll let it ferment for 2 weeks. We'll bottle then we'll bottle. You'll leave the bottles at room temperature to carbonate in bottle condition for 2 weeks. Then you're ready to put it in the fridge and drink. And that's when I'll come back in a few weeks. I'll do a taste test, let you see how it kind of came out. I'm eager to see how it came out. But that's a kit, really easy, straightforward kit. Eager to see how this turns out because nothing's really stopping us once we get the fermentation. Hey, why wouldn't I throw in this flavor, that flavor, or use, again, maybe a Kool-Aid or something like that. So interested to see how this comes out. I'll come back, do a taste test for you in a separate video. And with that being said, hope you liked the video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Till next time, bottoms up.